Lieutenant Haynewell's hands were shaking as he read the message for the third time. He didn't want to believe it, but the words on his screen remained unchanged. The Rathi Empire, one of the oldest alien civilizations in the known galaxy, had just declared war on Earth. The young officer looked up from his station at Earth's Orbital Defense Command. Through the massive window that curved overhead, he could see the beautiful blue planet below. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of human eyes, an alien fleet was coming to destroy everything he had ever known. But Admiral Du Young wasn't afraid. He stood at the center of the command room, his silver-streaked hair neat as always, his uniform crisp despite the late hour. While others rushed around in barely controlled panic, the Admiral might as well have been enjoying a morning coffee. "Sir," Haynewell called out, his voice steadier than he felt. "We have confirmation. The Rathi message has been verified by 3 separate translation teams." Du Young turned, his weathered face showing no surprise. "Read it to the room, Lieutenant." Haynewell swallowed hard and pressed the button that would project his screen onto the main display. The room fell silent as he began to read. "To the primitive species known as humans, your existence has become an irritation to the natural order of the galaxy. Your rapid expansion and uncontrolled technological development pose a threat to civilized space. The Rathi Empire, in agreement with our allied species, hereby declares a state of war against Earth and all human colonies. You have 1 standard galactic day to surrender unconditionally. Resistance will result in immediate planetary bombardment." The silence that followed was broken by hurried whispers and the beeping of communication consoles. Haynewell watched as several officers exchanged worried glances. Earth had only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. The Rathi Empire had been exploring the stars when humans were still figuring out how to make bronze. Admiral Du Young's voice cut through the growing noise. "Lieutenant Haynewell, please display the Rathi fleet's current position." Haynewell's fingers flew across his console. A 3-dimensional map appeared above the command center's main table. Hundreds of red dots showed the position of the approaching Rathi warships. They were already past Pluto's orbit. "Sir," one of the other officers spoke up, "shouldn't we begin civilian evacuations? The bunker networks." "Will not be necessary," Du Young said calmly. He walked to the main table, his steps unhurried. "Lieutenant Haynewell, what do you see in this tactical display?" Haynewell studied the map carefully. "The Rathi fleet is. They're following exactly the approach vector we predicted in last year's simulation." "Correct." Du Young smiled slightly. "And what else?" Haynewell leaned forward, noticing something he had missed before. "They're maintaining tight formation, almost like they're worried about something." "Precisely." Du Young turned to address the entire room. "The Rathi think they know everything about us. They've studied our broadcasts, our public networks, our visible defenses. They see a young species with a small fleet and minimal orbital installations." His smile grew a fraction wider. "They're being cautious because they don't understand why we aren't afraid." The Admiral pressed a button on the table. A new screen appeared, showing a message typed and ready to send. "Lieutenant, transmit our response to the Rathi fleet." Haynewell read the message and felt his eyes widen. It was just 3 words. "Come and see." Du Young walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "Send word to Captain Tawan. Tell him to position the fleet exactly as we planned." "And Lieutenant?" "Yes, sir. Start recording everything. The galaxy should know exactly what happens when someone threatens Earth." Haynewell nodded, his earlier fear replaced by a growing sense of anticipation. He had been on duty during dozens of simulations, but this was different. This was the moment everything had been leading up to, though the Rathi didn't know it yet. The young lieutenant looked at his admiral's reflection in the window. Du Young was still smiling that small, confident smile. And now Haynewell understood why. The Rathi had just made a terrible mistake. They thought they were starting a war. They didn't realize they were walking into a trap 30 years in the making. Commander Joho sat alone in the dimly lit communication chamber. The wall-sized screen in front of her showed only static. The Rathi had cut off all regular channels hours ago, but she kept trying. That was her job, to keep trying until the very last moment. "This is Earth's First Contact Division," she said for the 100th time. "We request an emergency diplomatic meeting. There is still time to prevent unnecessary conflict." For the 100th time, silence answered her. The door behind her opened. Jeho didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Admiral Do Young's footsteps had their own unique rhythm. "Still nothing?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "They think we're beneath them," Jeho said, finally turning away from the screen. "In their last message, their ambassador called us barely evolved primates playing with stolen technology." She smiled, but there was no humor in it. "They really believe we copied all our technology from ancient ruins or trade with other species." Do Young pulled up a chair beside her. "And what do you think about that, Commander?" "I think." Jeho paused, choosing her words carefully. "I think they forgot to ask themselves why they never found any ruins or traders to steal from." The Admiral nodded, pleased. This was why he had chosen Jeho to lead first contact. She saw the bigger picture. A light flashed on Jeho's console, an incoming transmission. But it wasn't from the Rathi fleet. It was from one of Earth's deep space monitoring stations. "Sir," she said, her voice turning professional, "the Rathi fleet has just passed Neptune's orbit. They're moving faster than we expected." "Good." Do Young stood up. "That means they're eager. Eager people make mistakes." Jeho followed him out of the communication chamber and into the busy hallway. Officers rushed past them, carrying data pads and urgent messages. But unlike the barely controlled panic in other parts of the base, these officers moved with purpose. "Have you activated Protocol Omega?" Jeho asked quietly. "Not yet. Lieutenant Hainul is waiting for my signal." Do Young stopped at a window, looking out at the stars. "Tell me, Commander, what do you know about spiders?" Jeho blinked at the sudden change of topic. "Spiders, sir?" "Yes, Earth spiders. Some of them build webs that are nearly invisible. Their prey never sees the trap until it's too late." He turned to face her. "Humanity learned its survival skills on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We learned from everything, even the smallest creatures." Understanding dawned on Jeho's face. "The defense network. That's why we let them get so close." "Exactly. The Rathi pride themselves on their long-range sensors, but they're looking for power signatures, energy readings, the usual signs of military technology." Do Young's eyes sparkled. "They're not looking for quiet, patient things waiting in the dark." Jeho's tablet beeped. Another message. This one made her breath catch. "Sir, the Rathi ambassador is calling. They're demanding to speak with our surrender delegation." Do Young straightened his uniform. "Well then, Commander, let's give them one last chance to avoid what's coming." "Open the channel." The tablet screen lit up, showing the face of the Rathi ambassador. The alien's scaled skin glowed with bioluminescent patterns, a sign of supreme confidence in their culture. "Humans," the ambassador said, not bothering with formal greetings. "Your time grows short. We detect your pitiful fleet gathering. Do not throw away lives in a pointless defense." Jeho watched as Do Young stepped into view of the camera. His face showed only polite interest, as if he were discussing the weather. "Ambassador," he said calmly, "we received your declaration of war. We have only one response. Look closer." The ambassador's patterns flickered in confusion. "What?" "Look closer," Do Young repeated. "You're about to learn why humanity has survived on a world that makes your home planets look like garden parks. You're about to learn why we never needed to steal technology." He leaned forward slightly. "And if you're very lucky, you're about to learn why starting a war with humanity was the biggest mistake your empire has ever made." Before the ambassador could respond, Do Young ended the transmission. He turned to Jeho. "Send word to all stations," he said. "The diplomatic phase is over. It's time to show the galaxy why you should never corner a species that evolved as prey and learned to become predators. Jai-Ho nodded and began sending the message. Above them, through the window, the stars continued to shine. Soon, they would shine on a very different galaxy, one that understood exactly what humanity was capable of. Lieutenant Hay-Newell stood at his post, watching the main screen as the Rathi fleet moved closer. While others around him worked quickly at their stations, his mind drifted back to his first day at the Orbital Defense Command, 3 years ago. He remembered walking into the archive room, fresh from the academy. Admiral Sunmai had been there, though she wasn't an admiral then. Her black hair had no gray streaks, and her face had fewer lines. But her eyes held the same sharp look they always did. "Do you know why we survived first contact?" she had asked him. Young Hay-Newell had given the standard answer from his textbooks. "Because we were peaceful and showed we weren't a threat." Sunmai had laughed, not unkindly, but with a wisdom that Hay-Newell now understood. "No, young man, we survived because we were ready for war while hoping for peace." She had shown him the real files then, not the public stories about lucky breaks and friendly aliens, but the truth. How Earth had detected alien signals 50 years before first contact. How they had built hidden defenses and backup plans long before any ship appeared in the sky. The memory shifted to 6 months later. Hay-Newell watched through old security footage as Sunmai presented her master plan to Earth's leaders. "We don't build obvious weapons," she had told them. "We build weather satellites that can throw rocks at near-light speed. We build mining stations that can become missile launchers. We build research posts that hide warships. Everything serves 2 purposes, peace and war." The council had agreed. They gave her everything she asked for. Money, resources, secrecy. For 20 years, she had worked quietly, building humanity's invisible shield. When she retired last year, she had handed the completed network to Admiral Du Young. Lieutenant Hay-Newell. The present rushed back. Du Young stood next to his station, looking at him with knowing eyes. "Sorry, sir," Hay-Newell said quickly. "I was remembering Admiral Sunmai." "Ah." Du Young nodded. "She would have enjoyed today. She built most of what we're about to use." Hay-Newell looked at his screen, checking the status of Sunmai's hidden network. Thousands of dots blinked green, each one a sleeping giant waiting to wake up. The Rathi ships moved between them, blind to the danger. "Sir," Hay-Newell said, "why didn't we tell them about our real strength? Maybe they wouldn't have declared war if they knew." "Because, Lieutenant, Admiral Sunmai taught us something important. True strength stays hidden until it's needed." Du Young touched a control panel, bringing up a new display. "Look at these readings from the Rathi fleet. What do you see?" Hay-Newell studied the numbers. "Their shields are strongest at the front. They're ready for a head-on fight." "Exactly. They expect us to behave like them, to fight like them." Du Young smiled that quiet smile again. "They don't understand that humans had to think differently to survive Earth." A memory flashed in Hay-Newell's mind. Another lesson from Sunmai. She had shown him Earth's history, how humans had gone from being prey animals to the planet's top predators. "We didn't win by being the strongest," she had said. "We won by being the smartest, by setting traps, by turning weakness into strength." Now, watching the Rathi fleet sail into humanity's greatest trap, Hay-Newell finally understood. Every public database showed Earth's weapons pointed out from the planet. Every visible defense faced outward. The Rathi thought they had found a pattern. They didn't know that humans never forgot their ancient hunting tricks. While the prey watched the spear, the net was already falling. "Status report," Du Young called out to the room. "All stations green," Hay-Newell answered. "The network is ready, waiting for your command." "Very good." Du Young looked at the main screen, where the Rathi ships crept closer to Saturn's orbit. "Send a message to Admiral Sunmai. Tell her to watch the news tomorrow. Her spider web is about to catch something big. Newell smiled as he sent the message. The Rathi thought this war would last days or weeks. They thought Earth would fight the way every other species fought. They were about to learn why humans told stories about David and Goliath, why humanity's heroes weren't always the strongest warriors, but the clever hunters who found a better way to win. Captain Taiwan stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Thunder, watching his radar screen with steady eyes. His ship, along with 50 others, formed Earth's visible defense fleet. To the approaching Rathi, they must have looked like children's toys compared to their massive warships. "Captain," his sensor officer called out, "the first Rathi ships have passed Saturn's rings. They're moving in attack formation." Taiwan nodded calmly. He had trained for this moment for 15 years. Every officer in Earth's fleet knew their part in today's play. They were the visible bait in humanity's great trap. His communication screen lit up with Admiral Du Young's face. "Status report, Captain. The enemy fleet is exactly where we want them." "Sir," Taiwan replied. "They're spreading out in a standard attack pattern. They think they're being clever by trying to surround us." "And your crew?" Taiwan looked around his bridge. Every face showed the same calm focus. They all knew the truth, that Earth's real fleet wasn't here at all. "Ready and waiting, sir," though some of them are a bit disappointed. "Disappointed?" Du Young raised an eyebrow. "Yes, sir. They worked hard to make our ships look weak and outdated, but the Rathi aren't even scanning us properly. They're too confident." The Admiral's mouth twitched in a small smile. "Well, we can't blame them. After all, what could 50 small ships do against 3,000 warships?" A new alert flashed on Taiwan's screen. The Rathi fleet had sent another message. He opened it and read aloud. "Your pathetic defense force is an insult. Surrender now, and we will spare your civilian population." "They're trying to make us angry," Taiwan said. "To make us attack first." "Of course they are," Du Young replied. "Angry enemies make mistakes. Remember your orders, Captain. No matter what they say or do, you must not fire first." "Understood, sir. We'll hold position and look scared." Taiwan straightened his uniform. "Though I admit, watching them fly straight into our trap is getting harder to keep quiet about." The radar screen updated again. The Rathi fleet had split into 3 groups. 2 groups moved to the sides, trying to circle around Earth's small fleet. The third and largest group moved straight ahead, their weapons clearly powered up. "Look at their formation," Taiwan said to his crew. "They think they're hunters surrounding weak prey. They don't realize they're walking into a spider's web." His weapons officer spoke up. "Sir, our guns could reach their front ships now. They're in perfect range." "No," Taiwan said firmly. "Those aren't our targets. Remember your training. We're just the shepherds, guiding them to the right spot." The bridge crew nodded. They had practiced this hundreds of times. Their ships weren't meant to fight. They were meant to look like easy targets, to make the Rathi overconfident, to draw them into exactly the right position. A new message came from Orbital Command. Lieutenant Newell's voice came through. "Captain Taiwan, Admiral Du Young says to begin Phase 2. Code phrase, the web is ready." Taiwan smiled. Phase 2 meant the trap was almost ready to spring. He sent the coded orders to his fleet. As one, the 50 Earth ships began to slowly back away from the approaching Rathi, as if in fear. "They're powering up their main guns," his sensor officer reported. "The Rathi ships are increasing speed. They think we're running away." "Good," Taiwan said. "Let them think that. Keep backing away slowly. Lead them right where we want them." Through his main window, he could see the first Rathi ships clearly now. They were beautiful in a way, their huge silver hulls shining in the sunlight. It was almost sad that such magnificent ships would soon be destroyed. "Sir," his communication officer called out, "the Rathi commander is broadcasting on all channels. They're laughing at us, calling us cowards." "Let them laugh," Todd One said quietly. They don't know that humans learned long ago. Sometimes the smartest hunter is the one who looks like prey. He watched as his fleet continued its careful retreat, drawing the massive Rathi armada deeper into Earth's invisible web of defenses. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn an important lesson about judging strength by size alone. Lieutenant Hay Newell watched the main screen of Earth's Orbital Defense Command with growing excitement. The Rathi fleet had just passed the final marker. 3,000 alien warships, arranged in perfect attack formation, had sailed right into position. All ships in place. He reported to Admiral Du Young. The Rathi fleet is completely inside the network's range. Du Young nodded slowly. He stood in the center of the command room, hands clasped behind his back. Show me the full tactical display. Newell pressed a series of buttons, and the main screen changed. Now it showed everything. Not just the visible ships, but all of humanity's hidden defenses. Thousands of small dots appeared, surrounding the Rathi fleet from every direction. Each dot represented a weapon platform that had been sleeping in space for years, waiting for this moment. Sir, Hay Newell said, Commander Jai-Ho reports that the Rathi are broadcasting victory speeches already. They think they've won. Of course they do. Du Young smiled. From their view, they see a handful of small Earth ships retreating from their mighty fleet. They see what they expected to see, a primitive species that doesn't stand a chance. Around them, the command center hummed with quiet activity. Every officer knew their part. They had trained for this day through countless simulations. Message from Captain Tawan. Hay Newell announced. Earth's fleet is in position. All ships report ready. Du Young walked to the main console. His finger hovered over a single red button. Lieutenant, send the activation code to all platforms. Authorization. Du Young Alpha 7. Hay Newell's hands flew across his keyboard. One by one, green lights began to appear on his screen as hidden weapon platforms powered up across the solar system. Each platform had been disguised as something harmless, a research satellite, a mining probe, or a communication relay. Platforms responding. Hay Newell reported. All systems show green. Sir, the Rathi still haven't noticed anything wrong. They're about to, Du Young said quietly. Then he pressed the red button. Across the solar system, thousands of hidden platforms came to life at once. Sensor masks dropped, revealing their true nature. Weapons powered up. Targeting systems locked on. On the main screen, Hay Newell saw the Rathi fleet suddenly stop moving. Their neat formation broke apart as ships tried to turn around. But it was too late. They're finally scanning the platforms, Hay Newell said, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. Their sensors are picking up our real defense network. Through the command center's windows, bright flashes of light appeared in space. Each flash was a platform firing its weapons. The Rathi ship shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against simple metal rods moving at near light speed. Message from the Rathi commander. Hay Newell called out. They're demanding to know how we hid so many weapons. They say it's impossible. Tell them to look at their history books, Du Young said. Humans have been hiding weapons in plain sight since we invented tools. We just got better at it. The main screen showed the battle, if it could even be called that. The Rathi fleet's perfect formation had turned into chaos. Their mighty warships, each one bigger than a small city, were being torn apart by weapons they never saw coming. Sir, Hay Newell said, checking his readings, 80% of their fleet is already disabled or destroyed. No Earth ships have fired a single shot. Du Young nodded. Send the signal to Captain Tawan. His fleet can move in now to accept surrenders. Newell looked at the tactical display again. The trap had worked perfectly, just like Admiral Sunmai had planned years ago. Humanity's invisible web had caught an enemy that thought size and power were all that mattered. Lieutenant, Du Young said, what's the elapsed time since we activated the platforms? Newell checked his clock. 7 minutes, sir. The entire battle has lasted 7 minutes so far. Good. Du Young smiled that quiet smile again. Send a message to all Earth stations. The spider's web has worked. The fly never saw it coming. As Hainul sent the message, he thought about how the galaxy would remember this day. Not as the day a mighty empire went to war, but as the day they learned why humans had survived on a deadly world for so long. Sometimes, the most dangerous predator was the one that looked harmless until it was too late. Time, 0 minutes. Lieutenant Hainul marked the start of the battle in his log. On his screen, the first wave of Earth's hidden weapons began to fire. The Rathi fleet, caught in the middle of humanity's trap, had nowhere to run. First impacts in 3 seconds, he reported. Time, 2 minutes. Captain Ta Wan watched from the bridge of his ship as the first Rathi vessels broke apart. Their mighty shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against simple metal rods moving at near light speed. His crew stayed silent, watching history unfold. Look at their formation, his first officer whispered. They're trying to bunch up. They think it will help their shields work better. They still don't understand, Ta Wan replied. You can't stop physics with fancy technology. Time, 5 minutes. Commander Jaiho studied the battle data flowing across her screen. The Rathi ships were firing blindly now, their advanced weapons hitting nothing but empty space. Earth's defense platforms were too small to target, and too many to stop. Their commander is sending panic signals to every ship, she reported to Du Young. They're ordering all ships to fire everything they have. Du Young nodded calmly. They're used to fighting battles with their advanced weapons, but you can't shoot what you can't see properly. Time, 8 minutes. The Rathi fleet's neat formation had turned into chaos. Their 3,000 ships tried to scatter in different directions, but Earth's trap was complete. Hidden platforms fired from every angle, their simple weapons tearing through the most advanced shields in the galaxy. Sir, Hainul called out, we're getting surrender signals from some of the smaller ships. Tell Captain Ta Wan to move in and accept their surrender, Du Young ordered. But keep the defense network active. We're not done yet. Time, 12 minutes. Taiwan's fleet moved forward for the first time since the battle began. His 50 ships, which the Rathi had mocked as primitive, now approached the broken remains of their mighty armada. This is Earth Defense Fleet to all surrendering vessels, he broadcast. Power down your weapons and engines. Prepare to be boarded. Time, 15 minutes. Jaiho watched as more Rathi ships gave up the fight. The larger ships were still trying to fight back, still refusing to believe that such simple weapons had defeated them. They're sending messages to their homeworld, she told Du Young. They're trying to warn the rest of their empire about our impossible technology. Good, Du Young said. Let them spread the word. The galaxy should know that humanity doesn't need fancy weapons to defend itself. Time, 18 minutes. Hainul's fingers flew across his keyboard as he tracked the remaining Rathi ships. Most had either surrendered or been disabled. Only the flagship, massive and proud, still fought on. The Rathi admiral is demanding to speak with you, sir, he told Du Young. The admiral appeared on their screen, his scaled face showing both rage and fear. How? He demanded. How did you hide such weapons from us? We didn't hide weapons, Du Young replied calmly. We hid simple tools that became weapons when needed. Your mistake was looking for the wrong thing. Time, 21 minutes. The Rathi flagship finally stopped firing. Its mighty engines, capable of crossing light years, fell silent. Around it, the wreckage of its fleet drifted in space, a graveyard of advanced technology defeated by basic physics. All major ships have either surrendered or been disabled, Ta Wan reported. Only a few small vessels are still trying to escape. Time, 23 minutes. Battle is over, Hainul announced to the command center. Total time from first shot to last surrender, 23 minutes. Du Young looked around the room at his officers. None of Earth's 50 ships had fired a single shot. None of humanity's advanced weapons had been revealed. They had won using nothing but simple tools and clever planning. "Send word to all stations," he ordered. "The war that was supposed to last months has ended in less than half an hour. And now the galaxy will learn why you should never underestimate humans." Newell made the final entry in his battle log. "Today, humanity taught the galaxy a lesson about true strength. It's not about having the most advanced weapons. It's about being smart enough to use simple tools in clever ways." The war that started with the Rathi Empire's proud declaration ended in just 23 minutes of confusion, disbelief, and surrender. Admiral Du Young sat in his office, watching as Commander Jai-Ho and Lieutenant Hay Newell prepared the message they would send to the Rathi Empire. On his desk, reports showed that Earth's fleet had finished collecting survivors from the battle. Captain Tadwan's ships were now guarding over 2,000 captured Rathi officers. "The video is ready, sir," Hay Newell said. "We've included footage from every angle of the battle." Jai-Ho nodded, adding, "And I've prepared the technical data. Simple scans showing just how many more defense platforms we have hidden throughout human space." Do Young looked at the final message on his screen. It was time to show the Rathi Empire why starting a war with humans had been their biggest mistake. "Send it," he ordered. Across the galaxy, in the great halls of the Rathi Empire, their leaders gathered to watch Earth's transmission. They had expected either a surrender message or desperate begging for peace. What they got instead made their scaled faces turn pale. The message began with crystal-clear footage of their mighty fleet's destruction. 3,000 warships, the pride of their empire, torn apart by weapons they never saw coming. The footage showed everything: their failed shields, their useless counterattacks, their confused retreat attempts. Then came the technical data. Maps appeared, showing thousands more defense platforms scattered throughout human-controlled space, each one just as hidden, just as deadly as the ones that had destroyed their fleet. Finally, Admiral Du Young's face appeared on their screens. "To the leaders of the Rathi Empire," he said calmly, as if speaking about the weather, "you declared war on humanity today. You thought we were primitive because we didn't show off our technology. You thought we were weak because we preferred peace." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You were wrong. What you just witnessed was less than 1% of our defensive capabilities. The weapons that destroyed your fleet were simple tools, hidden in plain sight throughout our solar system. And now you know we have thousands more, protecting every human world and colony." The screen split, showing more tactical data. Jai-Ho's voice explained in simple terms how humanity had prepared for war while hoping for peace. She showed them scans of seemingly harmless research stations and mining operations, all hiding deadly weapons. "Your empire has a choice to make," Du Young continued. "You can surrender now, unconditionally, or we can demonstrate our defenses around every Rathi-controlled world. You have 1 hour to decide." Hay Newell's voice added the final part. "Remember, the weapons you just saw were our simple ones, the ones we didn't mind revealing. Ask yourselves, what are our advanced weapons like if these were just the basic tools we left lying around?" The message ended with detailed footage of the Rathi flagship's surrender. The mighty vessel, pride of their fleet, drifting powerless in space after being defeated by what were essentially high-speed rocks. In the Rathi throne room, their emperor watched the message twice. Around him, his advisors argued frantically. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others couldn't believe that such a young species had defeated them so completely. "Send probes to their other worlds," one advisor suggested. "We need to verify their claims about other defense networks." "No," the emperor said quietly. "Look at how they defeated our best ships. Look at how they hid their weapons. They're showing us these things because they want us to know they can do it again." Back on Earth, Du Young waited patiently in his office. Hay Newell monitored communications while Jai-Ho prepared reports about the captured Rathi ships. "Sir," Hay Newell called out suddenly, "We're receiving a transmission from the Rathi capital." The Emperor's face appeared on their screen. His scales had lost their proud glow. "We," he paused, struggling with the words, "we accept your terms. The Rathi Empire surrenders unconditionally to Earth." Do Young nodded once. "A wise choice. We will begin peace negotiations tomorrow." After the transmission ended, Jai-Ho looked at the Admiral. "They're going to want to know all our secrets now." "Let them look," Du Young replied. "They'll never find them all. Because humanity's greatest secret isn't our weapons. It's our ability to turn anything into a defense when needed." Hamnul smiled as he recorded the official end of the shortest interstellar war in history. The Rathi had learned what Earth's animals had known for millions of years. Sometimes the quietest prey was actually the deadliest predator. John walked down the dark street. The night was cold, and he pulled his jacket tight. He was tired from working all day, but knew he had to keep going. There was still much to do before he could rest. As he turned the corner, a strange sound made him stop. It came from the alley up ahead. John waited and listened. Silence. Then the sound came again, louder this time. It sounded like something moving, dragging across the ground. He felt afraid but needed to see what it was. Slowly, he stepped into the alley. The sound was coming from behind a dumpster. John held his breath and looked around it. Lying there was the source of the noise. When he saw what it was, his eyes went wide with shock. He blinked several times, unable to believe what he was seeing. There, staring back at him, was an injured creature. But it was unlike anything John had ever seen before. It looked like a cross between an animal and something else. What that something else was, he did not know. All he knew was that this was no ordinary beast. The creature let out a low moan. It was clearly in pain and needed help. John knew he should run and get far away. But a part of him wanted to aid this poor being. Against his better judgment, he carefully approached it, unsure of what would happen next.